Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to RIS Media's Content Solutions Best Agent webinar series. Hi, I'm Terry Murphy. I'll be your host today, and I want to thank you all for being here. And by the way, we have an incredible program today with some of my favorite superstars, and I'll introduce them later. I'm Terry Murphy, the CEO of Murphy on Real Estate and Terry Murphy Communications. And as an author and a coach with Workman Success Systems and an e-learning producer, I really love doing these webinars because it gives us all the ability to consistently discover new systems and new strategies and great tips for high engagement and best practices. You know, it's always an honor to work with the elite. We've got some elite here today. And hosting these webinars with RIS Media, it's a tremendous learning resource. I encourage you to go to YouTube and pull some of the previous ones because they are just loaded with information. They give us the ability to really observe how we can continue to advance our skill sets, and it's just an amazing opportunity to share great value with other experts. And today's program is no different. It's loaded with new strategies, the value of a great script. Today we're getting new ways to handle old objections from our superstar team, including Mark Seiden. Say hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark. Yeah, I take instructions well.
I love you, Mark. And we're going to have contributions from Sarah Gouldy. Now, I'll be introducing them in a few minutes. Now, just a few housekeeping notes. During the webinar itself, we're not going to unmute everyone because it makes it difficult to get a clean recording. So if you have any questions, I encourage you to look at your screen and use the questions button. Click on the questions button and type your questions in. We'll be monitoring those questions, and there'll be time during the webinar to answer all your questions. We've got a lot of information here with these scripts. And here's another point. I want to remind you to stay on the call till the end, and here's why. We have some tremendous downloadables, some great scripts that Mark's sharing with us. And if you stay to the end, you'll be able to get the link. Workman Success Systems Coaching has provided great scripts for 5 steps on how to ask for a referral. So you want to stick around for the next 54 minutes or so and get this stuff. So stay to the end. And in these programs, we always have great partners that are involved with these webinars. And we're very, very fortunate to have as our partner on this call, Mr. Tom Dempsey with Quicken Loans. Now, Tom is the Divisional Vice President of National Sales for Quicken Loans, and he's responsible for leading the sales, the marketing, and business analysis teams, all dedicated to the growth and success of all the specialty lending that Quicken Loans has. Now, Tom knows the mortgage business. He's been in it for over 18 years, and his unique background in collaborating internally, this is really key with Quicken Loans, on technologies and systems that really enhance that mortgage experience. So Tom, say hello.
Good afternoon.
You know, if you've been in real estate, you know that Quicken Loans has been around for over 30 years. They've been providing award-winning customer service, and I didn't really know this, for over 30 years. They have the highest customer satisfaction rating in the USA by J.D. Power and Associates for 4 consecutive years. Now that's a tremendous achievement. Tom, we welcome you to the call. Thanks for joining us. And will you share with us what's new with Quicken Loans so our attendees might want to know?
Terry, thanks a lot. We're really excited to be one of the sponsors and the sponsor of this webinar, and we're really excited to continue moving forward down the purchase strategy and the purchase path that we're on right now. We're seeing a big shift in business. We're continuing to iterate on the digital mortgage experience, and most importantly, keeping that client experience first and foremost in everything that we do and every decision we make. So thanks for having me, and we're happy to be a part of this today.
Well, one very impressive note about Quicken Loans is their really unique culture. And, you know, I've been in the business a long time as well. And we give back to the community. You're always upping the game on how to best serve not only the Quicken Loans client, but their realtor partner as well. And you talk about when something goes wrong without understanding the real problem, that there's 2 issues. And I really wanted you to speak to that for just a moment, because you guys really take it all the way down to the line to make things happen.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things in this business that we're in. We're in a people business, right? And we always say it's not the problem that's the problem, it's how you handle the problem that's the problem. And so much of what we're focused on and the message we're trying to deliver is just communication. And we know that solving 95% of our problems we will do through proactive communication, visibility and transparency into the process and what is going on. And we've got a team of highly dedicated client relations folks that are here to make sure that we can identify potential challenges and then work through those solutions to arrive at the end goal. You know, we always make a joke that it's the lender's fault when deals don't go through, and I've been taking that to heart for about 18 years. But the truth is that we can always get it done. We just need to communicate a little better.
Yeah, well, that is one of the key things I got from our pre-interview, that when you really shared your vision of strong communication is the key to really making those transactions work. And the key word kept coming up was trust. So thanks for joining us today. And, you know, and Mark will agree with me on this. Scripts are something you learn when you're first in real estate, and a lot of people complain about it. And they say, well, it's like, you know, reading somebody else's words. There's lots of misconceptions. There's lack of consistency. So I really am looking forward to having you join us today. Again, if you're just joining us, I'm Terry Murphy. Welcome to the RISMedia's Agent Webinar Series. I'm hosting today's program. We'll hear from Tom during the program as well, and we always are delighted to have a sponsor as powerful and wonderful as Quicken Loans on our side. And Mark Seiden and I are going to be working this together. Our other guest, Sarah, this beautiful lady, she and I had already had a pre-interview, but unfortunately, because of the hurricane, she has packed her family up and she is evacuating at this very moment. So our hearts and prayers go out to her. But I'd like to also introduce you to Mark, as he and I are going to be collaborating on this segment. I met Mark through Workman Success Systems, and I was so impressed from the minute I met him. His enthusiasm is off the charts. He's so contagious. He's the founder and the CEO of Mark Seiden Real Estate. He is consistently ranked in the top 3 agents. He was #1 in 2008, 2014, and 15 in single-family sales in the Westchester Putnam County area of New York. Now, that's just the first county north of Manhattan, New York City. And he's also been generous enough to share 2 of his scripts when we are at the end of this program. So, Mark, welcome.
Well, thank you so much. My head is so big right now from that introduction, I don't think I can get it through the door after this seminar, but thank you.
Well, I'm hoping everybody hunkers down, because you have such an amazing commitment to the industry, and that's one of the things, you know, as an author and as a coach and consultant, you know, we get to meet a lot of top producers. There's a different element here, and that's one of the things I want to stress to everybody that's on the call. You're really going to get a sense of why understanding the premise behind scripts works. And one of the things that Sarah had said, now let me just tell you a little bit about Sarah, and I sure hope she's okay. She's such a high integrity individual, and she was generous enough and thoughtful enough to want to share her insights and her favorite scripts with you today, even though she can't join us. She's been in the business for 13 years, and she has a real rich, unusual background, Mark. She's got NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, psychology. She's always looking for improving her systems for communication. And she mentioned earlier that it's not about memorizing scripts, and you're going to speak to that in a few minutes, but to demonstrate what she calls the confidence factor. It's about knowing what to say and how to say it in a way when a consumer is asking you for leadership, is what we talked about it. In her opinion, she says you're better equipped for leadership because it establishes that rapport, which is what Tom referred to earlier, that trust factor that helps that agent understand how to move that buyer forward or that seller, and to deal with those concerns that are maybe not a no, but just I don't know enough yet. What would you say to that?
Well, absolutely. And, you know, the confidence factor is the biggest thing. And what people don't really seem to understand is that it's really not really how much you know, but how you present it. And I'm going to give you an extreme on that. Of all the agents that I have in my company and on the team and everything like that, I could probably tell people I don't know more than anybody else on my team. And what happens is newer agents or agents who've been doing this a while, they attempt to fake it. And when you attempt to fake it, people know, because you're either going to get caught in something that you were just flat out wrong, or you're just not going to come off saying it correctly, and everyone's going to know you're saying something wrong. So the extreme really is that if you have a lot of confidence and you really don't know something, and you tell people, you know what, I don't know, but I'm going to find out. And not only will I find out, but I'll let you know by 5 o'clock tonight. And the only reason why I'm saying 5 o'clock tonight is because I know I'll probably be able to tell them at 1 o'clock this afternoon. And then I call them by 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is 3 hours earlier than 5 o'clock in the afternoon. People will love you more and they will respect you more because you said, I don't know, with confidence.
Right.
So when you talk about conversational intelligence, we always tell people it is really not what you say. It is how you say it.
Yeah, conversational intelligence is a key here. She talks about when you know what to say on a pushback, it helps you figure out how you can respond. So it's not about a tactic where if you say this, I get to say that. She was very clear that she compared the use of scripts and objections like what she referred to as core math. Now, she has some younger kids, and so for her, core math, it means more than to me. But she talks about how it's the why to help eliminate an objection. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And that's really what scripts and dialogues and objection handling techniques are. It's not a trick. It's not for you to sound scripted and to sound like everybody else. It's actually quite the opposite. It's just learning the whys, learning the answers, learning how to handle what people really don't know. When people have objections, it's not because they're really saying no. Most of the time, they say no or they have objections because they just don't understand the entire process. So when you learn really great scripts, dialogues, and objection handling techniques, all you're telling them is, if I may put it to math, you're just explaining the formulas to them. You're telling them the formulas and explaining the formulas, as opposed to, well, why does the Earth rotate this way on an axis? I don't know. But if I met a really great scientist, I'm sure they're pretty scripted on the explanation to help me understand, so I can understand the entire process. That's all scripts, dialogues, and objection handling techniques are. It's just explaining the why in a way that the consumer will actually understand.
And if you're a new agent, I don't know how many new agents we have on the call right now, but if you're relatively new or you haven't practiced scripts, it'll be interesting for Mark to tell us about what he does every single week with his team on scripts and role playing. Is that if you don't know what to say, you convey to that client or that customer that you're not very knowledgeable. And if you know that they don't understand the process, because we do this every day. I mean, it's just like somebody who can do surgery. They know exactly what to do. And by the way, one of your scripts is a surgeon script. That was kind of an interesting analogy. But she says content is just content. Listen to context. And so that helps create that rapport that you need to understand. Why are they moving? What are their reasons? What are they not telling you? Now, Tom knows that when we're interviewing a buyer or a seller, sometimes they forget to mention some of the details that maybe they're embarrassed about, like there's a second on the house or they had a bankruptcy 7 years ago. And all of those elements are important to making them feel that they're in a trusted environment and that you have the ability and the expertise to handle them. Would you agree, Tom?
Yeah, I think that, we run in, scenarios a lot where we talk about, where something didn't go right. And, I mentioned communication earlier, but it's never intentional, right? It's always some critical piece of information is left out of the conversation. And that's probably for a number of reasons. One, you're not sticking to your plan and your process to make sure you're getting all of the information, right? Or you're contextually not delivering that information the right way. And what it does is ends up causing problems down the road. I mean, we talk about loans that don't close at, in the last week of the process or something because of one of those things that you just mentioned. And everybody ultimately assumes that we should have known that at the beginning, right? And the answer is, you're right, we should have, but we didn't go through the right steps. We didn't, follow our scripts and we didn't contextually understand what we were doing. We just wanted to move along. And I think it's important that we take that time to pause and actively listen as we're going through these things.
I think you bring up a good point. She talks about language patterns. Of course, she's a student of neurolinguistics and deep communication expertise. It's not about memorizing a script. I think years ago, Mark, when we were first in real estate, they gave us the tie downs and the this and that, which, you know, contextually help somebody make a decision. But it's a misnomer to these agents, especially if they haven't used them, that it's not about memorizing, it's about listening, which gives us the opportunity to handle the different responses, sort of like predictive marketing. Now, in the scripts that you gave us, which we'll be reviewing a little bit later, you know, you have that yes, if they answer yes, if they have the no, if they have the maybe, because it really, like you said, is the core math. Then you can figure out where you're going. Sarah gave us a list of 10 of her favorite buyer scripts. And one of them, Tom, was financially approving the buyer. And she said, quote, there are two numbers that are important. One is the amount of money that you feel that you can spend on a house, and the other is what the bank feels you can spend. As long as those two are in agreement, we'll have no problem. However, if those two numbers are a little out of sync, you may run into a problem. So when is the best time for my lender to give you a call to make sure that those numbers are in alignment? Weekends, weekdays, or in the next 15 minutes? That tells you she's giving them the opportunity to understand that she is confident that they can be approved, but do they understand the process of what they have to pay for and what it's going to cost them? I think that's a great segue to a lender. Don't you think so, Mark?
Yeah, absolutely. We have something that's similar to that. We make it a little funnier on our side because I'm a wackadoodle. But basically, yeah, what you just said, that is the absolute premise of exactly how to get it done.
Yeah, and you said you were a wackadoodle. How is yours a little bit different than this one?
Okay, so Mr. Quicken, you're not going to get upset with me when I say this, but this actually creates a really good core emotional response from the buyers. So what we basically say is, look, you know, there's really, again, just like she said, there's two numbers out there. What is your ability to purchase and what is your desire to purchase? And what we want to do is attempt to match that up as best as we can, because you may even find out that you're even able to afford even more than what you would like to pay. So we try to spin it a little bit that it's not just a limiting on a negative. We really try to let them know that maybe there's another chance on something else. So this is the cute part here. It says, so since we all know, that's the statement we say, since we all know that right now the banks are whack, they're crazy, and their processes and their programs change on an hourly basis. Oops, it just changed again. Why don't we get you pre-approved so we really can see what a lending institution says is your highest ability to purchase, and then we'll discuss within that number what you desire to purchase. That's kind of a little bit more of our script. And the people kind of chuckle because they will get a little bit of, you know, they'll have that same feeling because everyone's heard that, you know, sometimes a little harder to get a loan, and look what happened with the short sales and foreclosures. So the banks are more strict. So once we kind of put that in, the banks are a little wackadoodle, they're crazy, you know, they're limiting whatever. Once we put that entire burden that we're literally putting on the lending institution, it actually brings the shoulders down of the buyer and takes the burden off the agent to really, let's just see how these people are approved. Because to be brutally honest, it's not that hard these days. The banks are much less whack now than they were 5 years ago. Right, Tom?
That is correct, sir. Sorry to disappoint.
I must say, I've never heard anybody use whack and Quicken Loan at the same time, but that's
there you go.
You know, one other one that I wanted to share that Sarah had given us is determining buyer motivation. If you're a relatively new agent, or you're one of those agents that feel like you have to show 1 million homes, look at how beautifully she defines this. It's called determining the buyer's motivation. She says, quote, I'd like for my motivation to match your motivation. And what I mean by that is, if you want to buy a home yesterday, then you would love it if I called you every day with new listings for you to look at. Wouldn't you agree? which is what we call the tie down. And if you don't want to buy a home for 6 months to a year, I would drive you crazy if I called you every day, right? And of course they answer. So I know how to follow up with you best. Tell me on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 meaning that you have an immediate need to buy a home, and 1 means you're just curious. How would you rate yourself? Now, anything less than a 10, obviously, what would happen to bring your motivation up to a 10? There you go. I think that that's a brilliant way to figure out if they are, if you don't ask them the qualifying question, are we going to be together every day for the rest of my life, or do you have a time frame in mind? I think that's a really good one. Mark, do you use something similar?
Yeah, we do. And I want to point out 2 very specific things in that, and I hope everybody who's on can really kind of listen to what I'm saying to try to remember what Terry just asked of what Sarah's scripts are and understand these 2 points. Here's the first point. The biggest challenge with real estate agents is that they keep diving into what's called the what. What do you want to buy? How many bedrooms? How many baths? How much can you spend? It's all about the what. And the challenge is when you talk about the what, that'll be the least amount of real estate that you ever close in your life, is when you concentrate on the what. And what Sarah's scripts we're talking about is the why. So I always tell people, can you please not skip step 3 before you go to step 4? And the reason why I say 3 and 4 is because why has 3 letters in it and what has 4 letters in it. So you really want to dive into a person's why. Why are they moving? Why do they have that motivation? Why would they like to do something sooner and later? Why, without saying the word why. But you always want to know their why. If you know their why and they know you know their why, you automatically will have a bond with them. The reason why most agents don't have a bond with clients is because it's never about the why. It's always about the what, which equals commission. Number 2, which Terry called the tie down. I'm going to do a little test with everybody right now. When you are presenting to people, if you present in a way that is a lecture, it is now the agent's opinion. If you can change that lecture into a question, it's now the person's opinion. Here's why, because I'm going to do this to everybody here. There's a trick, not a bad trick, it's a good trick. It's a trick in order to get people to understand and to follow your direction, which is not telling them what to do, but asking questions. So it's kind of like this. So I think you really should get pre-approved so we know what the bank says that you can purchase. That's one way to go. Or what do you think about if we get you pre-approved first? Wouldn't you want to be pre-approved first so we can see what the bank is going to allow you to what price you're allowed to go up to, and then we can see what you can purchase? How does that sound? The reason why that works much better is because when you ask a question, there is not a human on the planet that the brain won't answer the question. Their mouth may not, their eyes may not, but there's not a brain in the world that can't not answer the question. Ready? Right? That means everybody on this call, their brain just answered that question. They might not have said it, but everybody's brain did, right?
Correct. Very good. Well, see.
So when you switch things around from a statement to a question, won't you get more information from the buyer or seller? And when they answer the question, is it your statement that's making a statement, or is their brain now saying, yes, it's true? Which is it?
That's a great analogy. I mean, that really, really works. And if you're listening, you should be taking notes, because that alone is going to change the response that you get, Mark. That's terrific. Well, I'd like to share one more of hers, and it's the relocation buyer. And if you're in a relocation market, which I was, like, it makes sense that that buyer wants to try to drink in everything about the area that you already know. So here's her script. Let me explain how I work. The first day we'll be looking at 3 or 4 homes in 3 or 4 different areas. You'll need to tell me exactly what you like or dislike about each of them. So she sets up the expectations. Based on that information, I'll be able to get a clear picture in my mind of what will ultimately meet or exceed your expectations. I'm expert, I'll be able to help you. The next day, we'll look at another 3 or 4 homes, any one of which you'll be able to buy. We'll decide on which home is best, write and negotiate the contract, and by noon, or at the latest 3, you'll be under contract. Now, that's the way it works. Do you have any questions before we start the process? Brilliant. She lets the client, the buyer, know this is how we're going to work, so they're not going to look at 3,000 houses and be totally confused. Mark, don't you think that's a brilliant one?
Yeah, I like that one. Matter of fact, I'm stealing that one.
There you go.
I mean, I'm taking that one. I mean, I'm writing that one down. Something
yeah.
like that.
There you go. Well, if you're on the call and you're just joining us, this is Mark Seiden and Terry Murphy along with Tom Dempsey from Quickens. And yes, we don't have a handout for this, but the program is being recorded, so you'll be able to pick it up at YouTube under the RISMedia YouTube for Agent Seminar. The next part of this is really featuring that cute face, Mark Seiden. We call him Mark 57 because we have a bunch of Marks. And there's 50 ways to leave your lover. There's 57 ways to love Mark Seiden. As you
there
can
you
tell,
go. I like that one.
Me too. I'm sure your wife will appreciate it. You have an amazing team like Sarah, and you're a top coach and a mentor. In our pre-interview, you enthusiastically declared that you have a specific analogy that you share about prospecting. It's a lot about like being on Broadway. Can you go into it?
Yeah, sure. So here's what I do, and I've used this a lot during the Workman Success Systems BAM calls that I do on the occasional Thursdays. And what you need to be as a real estate agent is understand that you are no different than an actor on Broadway. And what I mean is, any prospective client that you are talking to is expecting you to be on at that moment in time. If you go see your doctor, are you going to be okay if your doctor says, look, I'm just letting you know, I may not be, 100% today. I think I'm around 75%. So, hey, let me go check out your body and do a diagnosis and see if I'm going to do the right thing today. But don't worry, I'm only 75%. What about if a police officer did that? Or what about if an attorney did that, taking you to court? So what I always tell people is, when you're a real estate agent, and the reason why scripts, dialogues, and objection handling techniques are so important is because you need to understand, you need to know your scripts. You have to be on Broadway. You must be enthusiastic every minute of the time that you are on with a client, because they don't care if you're having a bad day. So if you lost a deal, or your dog is sick, or you got a flat tire, or it all happened at the same day, I have a question for you. If you fly to New York City, if you don't live near New York, and you're flying to New York City, and you're going to go to Broadway to see a play, a quick question. Anybody know how much a Broadway play costs right now in New York City? It's about $200-ish a ticket. And most people go with 2 people. That's $400. And most people don't just go to Broadway. They go have dinner first. You ever have dinner in New York City? Oh my God, you have to have a Mack truck of cash to go to dinner in New York City. That's another couple $100. And you're probably going to buy some souvenirs or some clothes or whatever. You could easily be into that entire evening for $750 or $1,000 as a couple. Parking, dinner, shopping, you name it. If you have someone going to Broadway to see a show, and you may be an actor that may be in the same show for 3 years, doing it 9 times a week or 8 times a week, however many times they do it per week, for 3 years, is it old hat for you? Do you know the scripts pretty well? I mean, is it even exciting for you anymore as an actor? Maybe not. But when that person's spending $750 or $1,000 per couple to go see that show, I have a quick question for you. Is it okay if you only do it okay because you went on another audition and you didn't get it, so now you're going to do your performance that day and only do it Is that acceptable?
No.
Wait, I have another question. If it's not acceptable, how many other people do you think you impact on your team, in your company, on that show if you're not good that day? So if you're not good that day, is it possible that someone will go on TripAdvisor or on any of these show review things and say that the show really wasn't great because this part, he just wasn't great that day? How many other people did you just affect? How many of his lives did you affect because you didn't do your part that day?
And
so
that's,
you think you got to be on every day.
And I think that we also need to know that we have to be sensitive to the fact that you've never seen the show, so you have to be completely connected and in the moment. And I don't think, let me rephrase that, I would say that most agents don't up their skill set for presentation skills. They just do the same thing they've always done. And so this,
Right.
You make a real valid point. You just can't have a bad day. And you also need to gear up, makeup, clothes, lights, camera, action, so that you can make it happen. Well, you also, I love that analogy, because you said it's really important that the experience be good. And if you look at the largest percentage of people that are consuming today, which is the millennials and the group just above them, they look for experience. And just like Tom talked about, the experience has to be good. You talked about earlier about your experience on the phone. It has to be good. But you also talk about using the SWAT team member analogy. And I really want you to go into that, because that was really a brilliant way to get people to understand how to really execute for super success.
Yeah. Wow. I could do 3 hours just on SWAT. All right. So I'm going to segue from what I just said into this. What you need to understand is it may be routine for you because you do this every day, but it's never routine for the person on the other side that you're saying it to, just like a Broadway actor. So again, if you've been doing the show for 3 years, it's routine for you because you've done 47 listing presentations and God knows how long, but to that next listing presentation, it's new to them. So when you go into something like this, when we talk about the SWAT team member, it is about attitude. It is about presentation. There is no such thing as a good or bad behavior style. And what I mean by that is whether you are very analytical, whether you're very flamboyant with your words, whatever it may be, there's no such thing as good or bad. What you need to understand is that you want to be able to speak the presentation based on how the person you're talking to behaves. So if I have a client that is very analytical, yeah, a lot of the presentation may be geared more towards analytical. And if I have another client that just talks about how they feel about the house and all the happy memories they had and all that stuff, if I start talking about too much about numbers, that's not going to work. So there is no bad or good. You have to match up your behavioral style so there's a great fit to who you're speaking to.
And so I
wonder, everybody?
Yeah, I wonder how many people have, and they kind of roll their eyes, has recently looked at their own DISC, which is a behavioral style, and understand why they're not connecting. Because this is a communication skill. If there's anything that selling is besides leadership, it's connection, it's engagement, and it's communication. So like you said, if you're dealing with an analytical and you're wackadoodle enthusiastic and you don't have any numbers or systems or procedures, they're not going to feel confident. So I would encourage everyone, as a takeaway here, the script will get you so far, but again, you're going to need to understand and pay attention, and as Sarah said, listen to the context of how they respond, because that's going to be critical to helping them feel confident to make a decision. Would you agree?
Oh, absolutely. And I want to talk about just that one thing you said, because we've said it many times, it's not what you say and how you say it. So here in my company, we call it the you look fat in that dress syndrome. And what I mean by that is, if I went to my wife, soon to be 25 years, next month, no, this month. Oh my God, better get that gift. This month, 25 years. If I will tell you, there are times when my wife puts on some clothes that I think is great, and other times I just don't think she looks that great in that. So if I went up to my wife and said, hey, look, you really don't look good in that dress, or you look fat in that dress, am I giving her the most accurate piece of information that I can? Oh, the answer is yes. Am I being truthful? Oh, the answer is yes. Will I be sleeping at home that night? Oh, the answer is no.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
so the question is, what do I do with that? So it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And that's the power of scripts, dialogues, and objection handling techniques, is you learn how to say things in a way that people would be more than happy to absorb it. So in case of the dress, I may have to go to my wife and say, honey, look, I see what you're wearing, but that other print one that you had in the closet that you wore to that other function that we did 6 months ago, I got to tell you, oh my God, that one, you looked incredible. I mean, this one's okay, but that one, oh my God, that was incredible. Now, my wife will respond to that. She'll still be disappointed and she'll kind of know what I'm saying, but I didn't call her fat in the dress, even though it was short, sweet, to the point, and I was honest.
Yeah, well, there is that delivery thing, but here's the thing that I want everybody to hear. Listen up, kids. You can't be that smooth unless you practice. And that brings us to this slide. There has to be some standards of practice. And it's sort of like getting a gym membership and expecting to wake up looking good. You got to put in the time to get the results. And you talk about what you just did just before we got on the call with your own team. Now, how long you've been in the business? A long time. When you've been
24 years.
Yeah, and after 24 years, and especially even as a coach, you understand that that you can't it just doesn't roll, because you've got to integrate it with some practice. And even you, having been in the business that long, you practice. Tell us about what you do with your team on scripts, dialogues, and role playing.
Every Wednesday and Friday from 10 a.m. and 11 a.m., we have role playing. It's all done by phone. And we purposely do it by phone because most of the time when you have to do your scripts, dialogues, and objection handling techniques, most of the time you're actually not in front of someone. So we purposely do this without people being able to see other people's facial expressions, because it's very different when you communicate and you can see people's facial expressions or not. But from 10 to 11 on Wednesdays and Fridays, we role play for an hour. Abso-frickin-lutely. And it's religious. And I have people who've been with me for years. And we role play from 10 to 11 on Wednesdays and Fridays, and here's why. And I want everyone to kind of envision this. I have a question for you. The U.S. Open is going on in New York right now, and all these tennis players are playing for millions and millions and millions of dollars, and they are really the best that they are in the world. Do they practice?
You bet they do.
They practice all the time. And guess who they're practicing with? People that are not as good as they are as playing tennis. Because if the people they were practicing with were better at them in tennis, those people would be the ones paying for $1 million. So they're actually practicing with people that are not necessarily as good as tennis players, but they're very good with technique. So basically, they role play every week. Oh, baseball players that make millions of dollars a year, do they practice? Do you know before every game they take infield practice and they take batting practice again and again and again as they make $5 to $25 million a year? And they practice and they take advice from people who are not as good as they are, but they may be better at technique or looking at different things to see if they have to adjust their little batting stance or whatever it is. Everybody who makes the big bucks on what they do actually practice over and over and over and over and over again. And then the people who want to make a lot of money, real estate agents, don't practice anything. And they have no time to practice and can't understand why deals are dying. I got to tell you.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Here's the thing. And congratulations to those of you that are listening today, because you're looking to advance your skill set, and you're getting to meet Mark Seiden, who you might not just run into in the street wherever you live, and he's sharing what works for him. Because how many transactions did you guys do last year?
We do about 100, but there's only 4.5 of us.
Yeah, and that's my point. 100 transactions is way more than the national average. And the reason is you continue to invest in your skill sets. Jerry Rice was another one. He practiced Christmas Day. He practiced constantly. And he's legendary because he practiced. So let's talk about, how do you budget the time? How do you get your agents there so that you know that they're going to practice for that hour? You had a tremendous opportunity when we did the pre-interview about what at Workman Success we call my perfect week, but you call it my working week. Talk to me about how you script that for your own team and yourself.
Well, listen, if you really want to do well, usually the most successful people are usually the most busiest people on the planet. And the busiest people on the planet are actually the people who are most rigid with their time, period. It's the agents and the people that are all over the place and responding to every piece of static that comes their way. I call them time vampires. It's everybody who tries to suck the time out of you every minute, every day. Phone calls, texts, emails, Snapchat, whatever it may be, everyone's looking at everything. And the perfect week or the working week, it's very simple. We schedule everything. We schedule time for static. We schedule time to check emails, answer calls, look at your texts, go to the bathroom, whatever it may be, eat. We'll schedule hours of blocks of time to do all that static work. But we also schedule time of go away and don't talk to me. And right now for this call, I scheduled an hour and 15 minutes because we had to be on 15 minutes early to make sure everything's working. An hour and 15 minutes that everybody on my team knows don't even approach Mark's front door because he has blocked out this time to teach. So real estate agents, if you want to prospect, if you want to role play, if you want to do follow-up calls, whatever you want to do in life, it is all about budgeting your time, committing to specific hours each week, creating a habit by time blocking. And the biggest challenge with time blocking is it's completely the opposite of what pure salespeople feel comfortable doing. They'd rather go to the dentist and use a dirty drill than time block. But the most successful agents, time block.
And you talked about that. You said to your team, tell me when you're going to actually work. And there's only 3 action items you do when you work. Could you share them with us?
Sure. I mean, I'm not too sure which 3 I told you, but basically, go ahead.
You said if you're going to come to work between 11 and 2, there's only 3 reasons that you're going to be working. One is you're going to be working directly with a buyer or seller.
Yep.
Second is you're going to be role playing, doing AMP or BAM or SLAM, which are training modules, which you go through. And the third one, and this is the one I want you all to hear, the third one is Mark says, we, meaning team leader and his team, are going to be prospecting, making calls.
Yep.
So it's a designated specific time.
Yeah, that's right. And we do, and it's scheduled. And it's scheduled, and it doesn't change. The biggest challenge that a lot of real estate agents have is they attempt to do this. So they'll say, okay, guys, let's all get together at 2 o'clock and, we'll do role playing. But then someone says, well, you know what, I really can't do 2 o'clock this week. Can we make it 3 o'clock? And everyone goes, well, okay, 3 o'clock. And you start changing things. So what happens is it disappears.
Yeah, it does.
When you create time blocks and they are gospel, they don't disappear. Occasionally someone can't make it, but they don't disappear and they actually happen. And with our staff, when we have meetings and huddles and role plays, my staff is with me a lot by phone, and they are not allowed to take buyers, inspections, appraisals, doctor's appointments, nothing during those times because it's static, it's in stone. And we do prospect together, and we will get together and we prospect. And they know what date it is. Yeah, we Wednesday night, second Wednesday night of the month, 5 to 8:30, they're spending it with me. And we are prospecting.
So here's the thing I want these people to hear is that it's not just about cold calling, it's your top 50. One of the downloads we're going to have, so stick around till the end, is the 5 steps to how to ask for a referral from your top 50. This is guaranteed, if you do it right, to yield as high as 86 transactions from 50 people. So we want to stick with that one. But here's one of your favorite scripts, and I thought this is
my favorite script on the planet.
Okay, well, tell us about it.
Okay, so we came up with a script. It's called the attorney script. And I came up with the attorney script because there are, I don't know how many realtors there are in your MLS, but there's thousands of us. I mean, I basically equate us to cockroaches. We come in from everywhere. And the big question is, are we different than anybody else? Or let me rephrase that. Do you think that consumers think that any of us are any different than any other real estate agent. Because what we hear all the time is, what's the difference? It's on the MLS. You don't need to take my listing. Just bring a buyer. You'll get paid. It's on the MLS. So most consumers have no idea how different we could be. So we came up with the attorney script. And the attorney script is great. And I'm going to read it because I love this script. Ready?
Everybody's better be ready.
Let me ask you a question that may seem odd, but I promise it has a purpose. Lawyers. Are all lawyers the same? I mean, the law is the law, where it is the same for everyone, correct? The law is written somewhere in some set of books that all the judges and lawyers use, correct?
Correct.
With that being said, does that mean all lawyers win the same number of cases? Do each and every one represent their clients and litigate in court all the same? I mean, they all have the same identical license, right? So does that mean every lawyer has the exact talent and results? Now, before I read the second part, and by the way, did you guys notice? I didn't make a lot of statements there. I don't even know how many questions I asked there, but I must have made my statement by asking 5, 6, 7 questions. Why would I ask the questions? Because everybody's brain has to react. So on this phone call, is there anybody on the call that thinks all lawyers are exactly the same, that none are better than others? So then I go to paragraph 2. Isn't that the same for real estate agents too? They all have the same license too and work with the same data. The lawyers work with the law, jurors, judges, and other lawyers, while the real estate agents work with the homes on the MLS, buyers, sellers, and other agents, right? Or correct?
Correct.
So does that mean that all the agents are the same? Does that mean we all have the same results in this market? If Mark, oh, that's me. Look, they still have my name there. If Mark and his team sold about 100 properties last year, while the average agent sold less than 5, do you think we research, strategically market, evaluate, and negotiate the same as everyone else?
Clearly not.
I will tell you, I can't tell you how many times per week I use this, here's the dirty word, script. But it's a script.
It is a script, but it makes really good sense, and it helps that buyer or that seller understand that there is a difference. And that's one of the issues with differentiation and distinction. I mean, Quicken Loans has their distinction in the marketplace, how they do what they do. This one absolutely sets up distinction in how we do what we do. Now, before we ask Tom to jump in here, because I think this script, you told me you practiced this actually this week. I'm not buying a house until the market gets better. I know how much I want to pay, and I'm not willing to pay more than what I want. Is that the one that you were practicing this week?
We did that. We did that this morning between 10 and 11.
And you say that because there's so much pressure on price right now, and obviously the house still has to appraise out. Isn't that correct, Tom?
Absolutely, 100%.
So it makes good sense as the realtor, which is their first point of contact, to understand that it's not just what we think, but it's what the market will bear and whatever. And you say on your script, I understand, but let me ask you this, is the reason for not purchasing now based on the fact that you're not seeing what you want to buy at the price you want to pay? And if they say yes, you have a script that says, well, if there are truly more buyers than sellers in this market, pause. Doesn't that mean that there is a risk that the prices will be going up, decreasing your buying power, giving less inventory with more buyers? This is high school economics. More demand and less inventory means rising prices. Wouldn't you rather pay less for something now than more for the exact same home in 6 months? Unbelievable. And if they say no, then you start asking qualifying questions.
And the qualifying questions is all about their why. So now we go from economics and we talk about their why, which is like, okay, if you do buy something or if you did buy something, where would you be moving to? What's waiting for you there? What's your ideal time frame? Do you really want to wait that long? What would happen in your life if you did wait that long? What would it cost you if you waited that long? So if we can't get them with the numbers or the logic, we go right back to the feelings, which is why. And that's what scripts and dialogues and objection handling techniques will do. If you practice the scripts, if you practice and practice the practice, you will have these on the tip of your tongue. And you're not doing it to manipulate your client in a bad way. You're doing it to help your client make the right decision for the right reason. Because why would you want to have your client wait if they can buy a house for $200,000 now? Why would you allow them to wait so when they really do have to buy, they have to pay $230,000 for the exact same house that it couldn't gotten before for $200,000? Oh, and by the way, the interest rates would have just gone up from 4 to 4.25%, which is about $15 for every $100,000 that they mortgage. That is now into their payment, and that's even a higher expense. So when you learn these scripts, dialogues, and objection handling techniques, it's not for evil. It's actually to help your consumer.
Yeah, and that's true. You know, we had a client, we had somebody ask that they said it's that, you know, some buyers don't want to get pre-qualified because they're embarrassed. And I know that Tom and I spoke about the trust factor here, one of the questions that came up. And can you jump in, Tom, and talk to us about how you handle that?
Yeah, you know, again, we're trying to arrive at authentic responses, right? And I think what you and Mark are talking about when it comes to objection handling and scripting is all spot on here. And I think the practice part is what makes somebody sound authentic in the delivery of their message. And the same thing is true for us. There's, you know, it's a intimately personal decision when you're applying for a mortgage to have to go through your history, and if it is not, you know, what is marketed or advertised or portrayed as the highest qualifying borrower, you know, you really have to have the rapport with your client to make sure that you can understand and truly get to the information to make an informed decision, because that decision doesn't just impact only that client, it impacts everybody else involved in the transaction, and in totality, what that creates is an experience, right? So exactly. You got to do a lot of the hard stuff up front to get to that authentic answer, that authentic experience in the end.
And I also think that we should really punctuate here as well that it's how you handle it. There's nothing to be embarrassed about. I mean, you know, good things happen, bad things happen to good people. It's a question of empowerment. And if you get a good lender, like Thomas just talked about, like Quicken, where they will listen to you, you can work through almost anything, but they have to have the trust factor. And that comes with what Sarah had said earlier, your confidence factor, your expertise, and what Mark's helping you understand to lead people to make a decision. Now, one of the questions came up that if they don't have an office, a physical office, Mark, and they don't have a way to practice scripts, how would you handle that?
Okay, you don't need an office to practice scripts. You need a phone. So all you got to do is get, I mean, first of all, you got to find the scripts. Workman Success Systems has some really awesome scripts, and I also share my personal scripts with Workman Success Systems. But there's plenty of other agents out there that have scripts, dialogues, objection handling techniques. What they don't have is a role play partner. Now, we actually love to do it with 4 to 6 people on the phone, which is kind of really cool when you get to hear other people do it, and then you got to get to talk about it. But by minimally, if you just pick one other role play partner and schedule a time and say, hey, dude, let's just do this from 11 to 11:30, you know, a half hour, and if we want to do more, we'll do more because it's just the 2 of us. Then just do scripts and dialogues for a half hour, and each one will talk. And what you do with scripts and dialogues, one pretends to be the consumer, and the other one does the script and dialogue, because you need the interaction from the person pretending to be the consumer to give you real answers. And I will tell you, sometimes some of our agents are nicer to the other one, but sometimes we get some agents who put some really brutal objections in there, and not to be mean to their fellow agent because they could get it back. It's because they just heard that mean, brutal objection and they didn't know how to handle it. So they brought it up during role play, and it's really cool when you start doing that interaction. And I will tell you, it's really fun. And you know who it's really fun with? You ready for this? Spouses, children, parents, other people who work in other jobs, friends. You may think doing role-playing with friends is boring. Your friends will find it fascinating. They will love this.
Well, we've had a couple of questions about that. Yeah, they're not in the business, and so for them it's fresh.
Oh my God, they love it. It's a show. You're on Broadway.
Yeah, and there you go. We have a couple of questions here. One said that they weren't allowed to call the colleagues in their brokerage, and their brokers hardly there. I would say, personally, be in an environment where you learn. Again, we do have some scripts available. We've only got about 5 minutes left, but if you stick around, you'll be able to download some great scripts, including one from Workman Success and his surgeon script and Mark's attorney script, which makes it really good. If you can do this in about 2 minutes, we've had a couple of questions about the pressure on brokerage commissions when people want to reduce a commission. I personally know that requires some value building at the get-go, but how would you answer that, Mark?
Oh, I have one for that. Let's see, page 19, if I remember, 810, I don't remember which page it is. I'd have to look it up. But basically, we've got a great script for that. The real quick version, because it's a little bit longer version, but the little quick version is that you do a couple things with a little bit of the why. Like, have I done my job? Have you been happy with my service? But you need to understand that people don't understand that a half a point is not a half a point. I'll give you an example. If you're making 2.5% of the transaction and they want you to reduce to 2%, which is only a 0.5%, what's the big deal? A 0.5% reduction from 2.5% down to 2% is a 20% reduction in income. Oh yeah.
Which cuts into your profit.
It's a 20% reduction in income. So, Mr. and Ms. Buyer Seller, are you saying that because you want to come down a 0.5% on the value of the house and you get the entire proceeds of the house, or you're getting the house if you're a buyer, you're asking me to cut 20% of my own income? Let me ask you a question. If you went into work tomorrow and your boss told you this, you're doing a fabulous job. We love you. You've been here for 5 years, and I got to tell you, I don't know how we could have done anything without you. Oh, but by the way, we're cutting your income by 20%.
Yeah,
we hope that you're coming back to work tomorrow with a happy face. But, it's tough out there, and we have a lot of competition, and these other companies are killing us with prices. So in order for us to compete, we're going to cut your salary by 20%. See you tomorrow.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to fly. I really don't.
But that's the script that we use, or a portion of that. It's a little bit longer than that, but it's a great script.
Well, here's the thing. I want to take the last minute and a half to ask you both one quick tip in summarizing this for the people that are on the call that are sticking around to download some of those great scripts. Tom, let's start with you. What would be your one tip that this group can walk away with? They just invested an hour of their life to hear you and hear from Mark and from Sarah. Tell us what you think that they'd like to walk away with.
Well, first of all, thank you for hosting this webinar today. And I would say, listen, connection, engagement, meaningful dialogue with clients, again, we're in the people business, is so, so important. And the way you get there is by looking at your tools, practicing with your tools, and then perfecting your skill or craft. So I think it's about just, again, being absolutely authentic and driving that engagement in a way that makes you passionate about what you do to make the lives and experiences for your clients better.
God, a dream come true with a lender. And Mark, let's have a parting word of wisdom from you as well.
Sure. Script suggestion handling techniques and dialogues, it gives you confidence. And when it gives you confidence, you will talk to consumers and they will love what you say. And what I mean by that is, if you want to be an agent that's loved by your clients, you're probably not going to make a lot of money. If you're an agent that will be respected by your clients, if they respect you, they will also love you. But it's the respect that gets them to do what you would like them to do. And that's how you will be able to earn a really nice lifestyle, because they will respect you. But it's very hard to respect you if you don't know your lines.
And so here it is, kids. It's all about authentic, confident communication, that you actually care, because that authenticity is going to come through. I want to thank RISMedia for giving us the platform to help thousands and thousands of professionals get better every single month with these webinars. You can go to YouTube and Google RISMedia to get past webinars on scripts. You can go to Workman Success Systems and get their Workman Wisdom every day. Clearly, for a copy of today's presentation and your bonus gifts, go to workmansuccess.com/sales scripts and download these scripts. And here's the thing, find a partner. Don't let anything stop you. And Tom, we really, really sincerely appreciate the support of Quicken Loans. You're a leader in our industry. We like to be with the winners, and definitely you are on the right team. Thank you so much for being with us, everyone. Go out there, be the best you can, and join us next month for another RISMedia webinar to make you the success you need to be this year and beyond. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Terry Murphy. Have a great month.
Thank you, Terry.
You're welcome.